Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Nurul Ain binti Shahani and I will present the introduction. Two-stage cluster sampling first obtained by selecting a sample of clusters, then selecting a sample element from each sample cluster. The conditions considered in our assignment are the sample must be UPSI student and the size must be equal, which is 25 samples. The population elements are first grouped into disjointed subpopulations called primary sampling units (PSU). Then a sample of PSU is drawn in first stage sampling. In the second stage sampling units, SSU may be clusters of elements for each PSU in the first stage sample. Then a sample of SSU is drawn from each PSU in the first stage sampling. Every element in the selected SSU is surveyed when the SSU is a cluster. In our study, the population consists of 100 UPSI students in Tanjung Malim, either at UKLK or college. There are 50 students from UKLK and 50 students from colleges, with each group consisting of 25 educational students and 25 non-educational students. The case study involves the UPSI students' weekly expenses, where the first stage is to select and distinguish students who live in UKLK or in college. And at the second stage, the students were selected and distinguished between education and non-education students to be the sample of this case study.
Okay, for this case study, we have three main objectives that we want to achieve. The first one is to compare the value of mean and the variance for two-stage cluster sampling to estimate the expenses for UPSI students weekly. And then the second one is to estimate the average expenses by the student, those who stay in a college and those who stay in UKLK area by using this cluster sampling. And then the last one is to analyze the weekly expenses of the education students and non-education students based on area they stay, which are divided into college and UKLK area by using this cluster sampling.
For the first step in the calculation is we have to estimate the population mean. The population mean is equal to 1 over the numbers of cluster in the population times with the summation of mean of the sample. The last answer we get 65.04. And then for the next step, we have to estimate the sample mean. The sample mean, we have 4 samples, which is UKLK students, college students, education students, and non-education students. For the UKLK students, we find the mean of the sample and we get the answer is 71.14. For the college student, the same formula is used and we get the final answer 58.94. And for education student, we've got the mean, which is 66.73, and for non-education students, we got the estimated sample mean is 63.35. Next step is the step 3, which is the last step. We have to estimate the variance. The variance, we use the formula variance and the value that we got from the sample mean. We find the variance and we put in the formula of 1 over the number n minus 1 and the small n, which is the number of clusters selected in the simple random sampling, times with the summation of mean power of 2 minus n times estimated mean power of 2, and the final answer we've got 208.83. Next is the x squared w. We firstly have to compute the term involving the sum of square of all individual observation, and we've got the final answer is 503,882.5. And then for the mean sample power of 2, we've got 110,766.96, and thus we compute in the formula for the x squared w. We've got the final answer is 810.86. Then we've got the estimate of the variance. We put in the formula and we've got the final answer is 8.1294.
In conclusion, the mean for this cluster assignment is Rm 65.04 cent per week. But specifically, the average expense by a UKLK student is Rm 71.74 cent, while the average expense by college students is Rm 58.94 cent. The average of weekly expenses by an education student is Rm 66.73 cent, while for non-education students is Rm 63.35 cent. Here we can conclude that the weekly expenses by college students were smaller compared to those who stayed in UKLK, but the expenses of education are slightly higher compared to non-educational students. The overall conclusion is that expenses by non-education are more dominant to average expenses by population. That's all from our quick presentation. Thank you.